everyone, how are you? Cameras on, please. Arlene, camera on you, thank you. Ed, good to see you. How's vacation? I'm gonna tell your wife, man. She should know better. Vacation during a class? No good. Her fault. All right, guys, again, make sure your cameras are on. You don't have to apologize, Ed. But I will talk to Kelly about it. All right, so you guys have any questions before we start? I hope you had a great weekend, by the way. But do you have any questions before we start? Drop them now in the chat. We are officially halfway through the course, so we got 2 more weeks to go, and we're almost done, right? Halfway through the course. Diana, how was your birthday party? Was good? Yeah? Great. Awesome. Everybody was here asking on Friday, like, hey, where's Diana? Like, hey, I don't know. I didn't give her a gift. I didn't tell her to take the day off, but she still did it. She's a rebel. All right. Celine is out on the street. Joelle, where's your camera? That's Denise, Tina, Arlene, Brandon, Ed, Ahmed, I see you. Yella, we're good. All right, Joel's on. All right, if anybody's watching on YouTube, you're welcome to participate as well. And one of the things I want to ask you guys, if you can, whenever you can, it doesn't have to be right now, but whenever you can, guys, subscribe also to the YouTube channel. We got a lot of good things coming up for the new year. They're going to be very helpful. You want to know about about different classes, you want to know about different trainings, everything is going to be on the YouTube channel as well. So subscribe there whenever you can. Also, you guys can share the YouTube channel. You guys can share our page. Don't forget, I did mention in the beginning, if you do share our page, see something here real quick. So if you do share our page, you guys see right here, it says right there, earn money with us. That will create a unique link, and you don't have to be a student, as I mentioned. So this is for whoever's on the YouTube watching. You don't have to be a student. You can always click on that link, and it creates a unique link for you. So anybody that signs up, they're linked to you for any of the courses. They're linked to you, and you get 20% of whatever they buy. So let's look over here real quick. You get up to 20% commission out of everything they buy. So you just create your affiliate or referral link, whatever you want to call it, affiliate or referral link. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is this next week on Monday we start a brand new morning class. So Monday the 16th we start a brand new morning class. If you know anybody that wants to take the course, or if you guys need to make up any chapters, or you want to revisit the early chapters, you're always welcome to jump in on the morning class as well. All right. So just a few things to help you out. And the next evening class is going to be December 7th. So again, if you know anybody who wants to take the course, refer them to the site. They can register for the upcoming classes. All right. Next. we're going to talk today, the only chapter. So over the next couple days, this is what's going to happen. Today, this is the only chapter we're going to cover, mainly because here will take some time. So I'm going to separate this from the first section when we go to the income cap approach. And then tomorrow's chapter is going to be divided into 2 days. It's only one chapter, but it's a very long chapter, so we're going to divide it into 2 separate days. Okay. After that, we start picking up, and we'll do more chapters a day, and then we slow down again to 1 chapter. It's just because until now is more like regulations, and from here on is more applications. So there's a lot of details that you need to learn for your profession. Not so much for the state exam, but for your profession. I'll point you out a few things that are specific on the state exam that you need to know. And as I've been doing all along, I'll point out things that are state specific, so or that are for your profession only, right? So I'll cover all that. Right? All right, cool. So 550, appraising. So we're going to start with a question first. And the question is, what is appraising? Let me know in the chat, what do you guys think appraising is? Appraising. Ahmed says evaluation. Okay. Finding the value. Analysis, says Joel. So appraising, evaluation, finding the value, analysis. All right. Good. Ed says value. Anybody else? It says value. Okay, so you guys are saying that appraisal is finding the value. Okay, got it. Based on what exactly? So what I'm quality of something, okay, Denise, okay. Find out the worth of something, Celine, okay. So now that's based on what? On what factors, okay? So usually I have something else here to help me out, but right now it's going to be just this. So I have a phone. Please. All right, so I have a phone, right? And you guys can see that there's something here on the phone, right? Now, this pretty much means, it's easier when everybody's here in class. It's a lot easier for me to point this out. But if you guys look right here, there's something on the phone. If I put it at a different angle, you cannot see clearly what it is. And if I show you my angle, right, totally different. But aren't we looking at the same phone? We are, right? So what is appraising? What is appraising? Appraising is obviously, like you guys wrote, estimating, right? Appraising is finding the value or quality of something, got it? Analysis, evaluation, but based on what? If we have different views, right? So sorry, just showing you here. So this is the answers we got. So if we have different views of the same item, right? Then an appraisal technically, it is finding value, correct? Make sure, Zelene's, make sure you don't have it on private, because then I have to always be changing here. But pretty much what we are saying, because everybody has different views, what we are saying is that appraising is an opinion of value. And because I showed you guys right now that this is your view and this is my view, even though we're looking at the same thing, there are different values based on opinion. Now, there's a big difference between estimating value, okay, and appraising. Did you guys notice that it says and? There's a big difference. See, appraising is based on standards of appraisal, based on standards of evaluating something. So if it's for real estate, there are standards to evaluate real estate. If it's jewelry, let's say diamonds, there are certain standards to evaluate diamonds. So everybody follows it, right? Now, opinion of value or estimate of value can have so many different views to this, right? There's people that would have a Samsung. There's people that would prefer to have an iPhone. There's people that would prefer to have a Motorola, a Nokia, or something like that. You guys understand? Everybody has a different perception of value. So how do we determine the value of something that is so specific? Again, based on certain standards. Now, appraising is done by a professional appraiser, okay? So it's the opinion of value by an appraiser. Okay? So we don't do appraisals, okay? But we can estimate value by doing comps, which is the CMA, by agents, as an example, right? Now, these go hand in hand when it comes to the appraiser. He doesn't estimate a value based on approved appraising practices. But what we do, we just do CMAs, comps, based on recent sales. All right, you guys are going to notice the difference as we go through it, okay? So, appraisal is done by professional appraisers. All right? Now, as far as real estate value, if you guys remember, on chapter 15, right, that's how we ended on Friday. On chapter 15, we talked about real estate markets, correct? You guys remember that? Understanding the real estate market, right? So to establish the real estate value, we need to understand what the real estate market does, right? And we talk about foundation of the values, right? So the valuation of real property is most fundamental activities in real estate business. Its role is particularly critical in the transfer of real property, since the value of a parcel establishes the general price range for principal parties to negotiate. Now look what it says. Real estate value, in general, is the present monetary worth of benefits arising from the ownership of real estate. So pretty much what we're saying is, you're paying today for something expecting a future value. For instance, if I buy something to wear, do I expect to throw it out tomorrow? Depends. If that was the purpose, then I bought it today to throw it out tomorrow. When you buy real estate, do you expect to sell it tomorrow? Well, it depends. Are you buying, fixing, and flipping tomorrow? You see what I'm saying? So everybody has different value or attributes a different value to things. The present monetary worth, I'm paying today for future value. Now, what future value can we get from real estate? Income, for instance. Every month, I get paid from the real estate. I don't pay the real estate, I get paid from the real estate. That's income. Appreciation. Over the years, it increases in value. So it appreciates, it gains value over the years. At least that's what we expect when we buy real estate. We'll talk about it better in chapter 18. The use. When I buy real estate, I intend to use it for a particular purpose. If it's a home, then that's what I'm going to use it for, so I can sleep in it, right? And tax benefits. So there's we can tax benefit the appreciation and depreciation of a property. So great benefits, deductions. So these are the advantages, primary benefits that contribute to the real estate value. Now, ownership of real estate produces income when there are leases on the land, the improvements, or on the air, surface, or subsurface rights, which by now you guys know that could be sold separately, right? Right. Such income is part of real estate value because an investor will pay money to buy the income stream generated by ownership of the property. Appreciation is the increase in market value. Increase of market value of a parcel of land over time. That appreciation, right? The property, the way the property is used, whether it's residential, commercial, agricultural, in large part determines the property value as well, and each kind of use has its own benefits. Now, depending on the current tax law, tax benefits from ownership of a property may take the form of preferred treatment of capital gains, tax losses, depreciation, and deferrals of tax liability. These tax benefits contribute to the income and potential sale price of a property. A number of economic forces, right? We're talking now about the foundations. A number of economic forces in the marketplace contribute towards the real estate value. Amongst the most recognized of these principles are those listed below. And guys, we talked about most of these on Friday, so we're going to skip some of them, okay? But for instance, supply and demand. There's too much supply, not enough demand, the prices drop. If there's not enough supply, there's a lot of demand, the prices rise. Utility transferability, anticipation and substitution, contribution, change, highest and best use, conformity, progression, regression, assemblage, and subdivision. All right, so supply and demand, we covered. We talked about this on Friday. Utility is what's the demand for it. Remember the cycle, right? The cycle of the market. Is it in high demand in this area? Is it useful for the current market, right? So if it doesn't have the same function in a certain place, or it doesn't provide as much value or worth in a certain place, then obviously the overall price drops. Transferability, being easy to be transferred from me to you. So clear title most of the times, that's what it is, clear title. And we'll talk about that better in closings. Anticipation, this one's easy. Anticipation is what we expect in the future. So over a period of time, I anticipate that I'll either collect rent or increase value. So depending on the type of property, the value can be attributed based on these two factors, so income or appreciation. Substitution. So when we're talking about substitution, it's very simple. When you guys look at the market, and we're looking for a single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? And you're looking for properties up to $300,000. We go to a particular area that has like 5 or 4 different properties available for sale that are within the same price range, within the same specs, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, garage, and all that good stuff, right? But this one is listed for $280. This one's listed for $300. This one's listed for $270. They're all very similar, all very similar. What changes, for instance, is the color, or one has a garage and the other one doesn't, right? Which property would you go for? Would you go for the $300,000 because you said up to $300? Would you go for the $280, which is very similar with garage, very similar to the $300, or would you go to the $270 without garage? Which one would you pick? Now, substitution, you don't have to answer. Substitution is pretty much that. Substitution is we're looking at the market and we're trying to see what are the most similar properties in the market and why would I pay more or less for it. Now, the ones that I just told you, the 280 and the 300, they both have the garage, which you want. So the 270 is not much of a difference to make me say, yeah, I'll go for that one, right? But between the 280 and the 300, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, both of them have garage. Both of them are positioned in the same area of town, let's say, located in the same area of town. So why would I go for the 300 and not for the 280? What is the difference between them, right? So this is where we start thinking about substitution. I understand there's two that are almost the same, but I usually will take the one that's lesser than the one that's more, right? So that's what we would do. And it's common sense, right? It's common sense. Why would you overpay for something when you have it readily available for a little bit less, right? Contribution. Contribution is pretty much figuring out what the improvement, what are you putting into the property, how does it increase value? So you guys remember the property that was $270? Has no garage. So how much is it going to cost for me to build a garage? And if I build a garage, how much more is it going to be worth? You see what I'm saying? Is it worth that investment? That's what we're going to look at. So an example here, things that increase value, is adding a bathroom to a house that only has one, for instance. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. But if we add another bathroom, right? We spent, let's say $10,000, but it increased. Sorry, somebody honking outside. They must like this part of the course. Anyway, so where was I? Let's say you spent, $5,000 to put an additional bathroom, $5,000, but it increased $15,000 in value. For some people, that makes it worth it, right? But what if you put 5,000 and it only increased 8,000? That means the real increase was $3,000. You see what I'm saying? Is it worth doing it? Probably not. So these are things to consider in contribution. How much more value does it have by creating that improvement? Now, there's something called diminishing returns. So there's increasing and there's diminishing returns. So a diminishing return is you're putting so much money into the property, and guys, I get it. It's my house and mine has to be the best on the block. I get it. We all have that pride in our properties. I get it. But you also have to be within reason, because your property is located in an area, for instance, where all the properties are worth $300,000. Putting $300,000 worth of labor and material into the property is not going to increase the value, right? So if you improved your property so much that it's now worth $1 million based on the improvements, but everybody else around is 300, then is your property worth $1 million? No, it brings you down. The value brings it down, so it's not contributing to the value at all. In fact, and I'll come back. In fact, it's regulated by progression and regression. And we'll come back to the other ones. This is regulated by progression and regression. See, have you ever heard, in terms of investments, buy the cheapest house in the area? Anybody ever heard of that? Raise your hand if you heard that. Buy the cheapest house in the area. Okay. Why are you buying the cheapest house in the area? Because everybody else around drags your value up without you having to do anything. Just maintain your property, and everybody else that's improving their houses. So as you look around, right? As you look around, let's say you're an investor. As you look around, wow, they're working on this property, they're working on that property, they're working on that property. I'm going to buy this one, but it sucks. Well, think about business. Paint it, right? Let's say everybody else is improving, and this is the property we're buying. Paint it, do a little landscaping, and once those are done, everybody else around, once they're done and they increase to $100, $150, $200,000 in value, your property without doing anything increased 50, 60, maybe even $100,000 in value without doing anything. And I'll prove it to you real quick. Here in Newark, for instance, houses that 3 years ago or 4 years ago were worth $300,000 without doing anything. But because of market demand and because of improvements of newer homes, those same properties that were $300,000 are now at $530,000, $540,000. Some of them ridiculously at even almost $600,000. From $300,000, they almost doubled because the market, supply and demand, and improvements brought the prices up. That's progression. Improving your house while nobody else is doing it, regression. It brings the value down. That's what you need to remember. Progression, value goes up because everybody else around increases the value. Regression, value goes down because everybody else is down there. It's almost like your unsuccessful friends, right? You ever heard of that one? That usually when somebody becomes successful, your friends go and try to drag you down. It's almost the same thing. So when it comes to business, right? There's an old saying: don't take business advice from somebody that's broke, because most likely they're going to discourage you and keep you broke. That's what it is. All right. So it's the same thing: progression and regression, dragging down or going up, one or the other. I'm not telling you to get away from your friends. That's not what I said, by the way. Just in case somebody's like, no, but I really like my friends. Sure, that's why they're called friends. But when it comes to a business decision, and guys, real estate is a business decision, right? When it comes to business decisions, you either progress or you regress. Choose one. There's no way to stay afloat. No way. You either progress or you regress. Okay? So going back, change. We talked about this in chapter 15, the real estate market. And we did say that market changes also affect the value of a house. So for instance, let's say a shopping plaza is going to be built right next to your house. That might increase the value. It might decrease the value depending on the type of property or the type of business that's going to be put right next to yours, right? So again, things to consider. Highest and best use. So highest and best use also gives value to a property. But what is highest and best use? If I have a parking lot, right? If it's just a parking lot, just land, do you guys think that's the highest and best use that I can give to the property? Is that the best thing I can do with the property? Let me know in the chat. Is that the best thing that I can do with the property? A parking lot. That's all I have. Is it the best thing I can do with the property? Let me know. All right. So Ahmed says, I'll put a car wash on that bad boy. All right. Well, let's think about being in a busy downtown area. This is your parking lot, right? And right next to it is a building, right? And a bunch of buildings. So this is your parking lot. That's the best thing we can do in a busy downtown area. A car wash is the best thing you can do in a busy downtown area, for instance. Is that it? Highest and best use of land. Let's assume you want to do the car wash. Okay? Let's assume you want to do a parking lot. Not a problem. How about what we do, right? It's simple. Underneath, we have the parking still and the car wash right there. How about we do both? Diana, you still drinking beer from your party? Oh, it's water. Okay. I don't know. I saw a green bottle going up in the air. I'm like, wow, that party is strong. All right. Anyway. So let's do this. Turn this into a building, office building, right? And that's it. You still have your parking lot, which is much needed in the area, but you're building on top. This would be probably the highest and best use in that area. You guys get it? So highest and best use is the highest value, as it is, as a parking lot only. Okay? As a parking lot only, it's worth $30,000. As a parking lot with a car wash for Mr. Badur and on top office building on top, it's worth $3 million. Just a couple extra zeros. The highest and best use. We give value based on what it is, but we also retract value from what it could be. Okay? Building with commercial space. There you go. There's commercial space right there. Or it could be a store underneath. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you want. In busy downtown areas, you guys look at New York, for instance. New York, a bunch of buildings have a parking lot and a car wash underneath, right? A lot of them. Why? Because a building is needed, right? But so is parking. Here in Newark, for instance, you go to Ferry Street, it's almost impossible to find parking. That's one of the things you need to, when you're building something new, you should consider the parking lot. Highest and best use. Conformity. Now, what is conformity? What is something that's conforming? Who can tell me? If you're watching on YouTube, you can reply to this as well. What is something that's conforming? What does conformity or conforming mean? Let me know in the chat. Conforming. Let me know in the chat. Conformity or conforming. Guys, I see a lot of cameras are off. Make sure you turn your cameras on, please. Thank you. Or on you. What is conforming or conformity? Without Googling. No Googling. Forming. To adapt. Okay. What else? Better value based on its position. I don't know how I'll take that on a Monday, but okay. Joel, to comfort? Okay. I guess. Be familiar or agree. Okay, let's look at different opinions. Cheryl, hey. She says adapting to the needs of a community or a group. Okay. The word conforming or conformity. In the simplest terms, it's according to standards. Conformity or conforming in the simplest terms is according to standards. So when we look at, so let's look at Cheryl's comment here, adapting to the needs of a community or a group. So let's say if you're in an area where it's predominantly single families, are you going to build a multifamily there? Do you think that it goes along with the standards? No. Are you going to build a commercial building? No, it doesn't go along with the standards. So there is something, right? There is something in the municipalities called zoning. So traditionally they'll be zoned equally to establish conformity. So there's the residential single families, there's the residential 2 to 4, right? So everything follows a different level of conformity, right? And establish standards. Now, why do we want that? So Lula wrote to add something to conform with its surroundings. So very similar to Cheryl's comment, but why would we have conformity? Very simple. If this is your neighborhood and the houses are all very similar, it's easier to say that if this one sold for 300, then most likely these will be around 300, right? And again, 300. Why? Because these are all similar. They conform. So let's say they're all single family. They're all 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? So they conform with the neighborhood. So it's easy to evaluate. Now, for instance, let's say that this one right here is a 4-family. Okay? Therefore, instead of having 3-bedroom, 2-bath, he now has 12-bedroom, 8-bath. What's the value of that one? You guys understand what we're trying to get at? To achieve the best value of a property, we have to have comparables. And if I don't have comparables, because this one's the oddball here, how can I evaluate this property when everything else around is single family? Right? And that's why we created different approaches to value, which we'll talk about later. But that's why we created different approaches to value. So we can, if there's something that doesn't conform, that's out of the norm, out of the standards, right? It is evaluated in a different way. All right. Cheryl, it blends the needs of the community as well. So you don't have large commercial, right? So something similar to what I was saying here. So you don't have large commercial and residential areas. So that's why I was talking about zonings before. There's residential, there's commercial, right? There's industrial, and so on. So there's different types of zonings to be able to establish the conformity. That's what I was saying before. But then within the zoning, so this is still residential. 4-family is a residential, right? But even within residential, then there's different categories. These right here are zoned for 1 to 2-family, let's say, right? But that one was zoned 3 to 4. Okay? It's as simple as that. These have a standard or similar value to that one instead of that one. Would the 4-family fall under regression? So, yeah, it wouldn't reach its full potential if it's not a multifamily area. It wouldn't reach its full potential. So if you're the first one to build a 4-family, is it going to be worth more? Yeah, sure. Let's say this 4-family, because the area is only single family. Let's say this 4-family is being sold for $600K, right? If a single family is 300, do you think a 4-family should be 600? No, you'd think probably 1.2 million, right? Probably, because it's a 4-family. But no, if there's no comparisons around, it drags the value down, yes. Right? It drags the value down. Okay. All right, next. The next word we have is assemblage. What is assemblage? I want you guys to think about this word right here. Assemblage, think about IKEA. Now, why IKEA? Because when you buy something from IKEA, what are you doing? You're assembling it, you're putting it together, right? So this is IKEA land. When you buy 2 parcels of land, let's say one neighboring each other, neighboring the other, right? So you have this piece of land already, and you're buying your neighbor's piece of land. And instead of being 2 separate pieces of land, you put them together, you assemble them into one larger parcel, right? Then it becomes an assemblage, and we reach what's called plottage value. So joining 2 parcels of land, adjacent parcels of land, joining them, it's called assemblage. Just like IKEA, you're putting it together, so you're assembling it. And that now creates a new value. It's a plot of land. It's a bigger piece of land. Used to be 2, now it's 1, plot of land. It's considered plottage value. The opposite of assemblage is subdivision. Okay? This is the opposite, because assemblage is you buying small parcels and putting them into one, where subdivision is you buy a bigger parcel and you cut it into pieces, right? So a subdivision We had 2 parcels, and we turn it into 1. This is called assemblage. Okay, so IKEA. Used to be 2, now is 1. Assemblage. Later on, we want to cut it into pieces. This is called subdivision. You got it? So putting it together, assemblage. Cutting into pieces, subdivision. Now, question, why would we need appraisal? What do we need appraisals or estimated values for? Who can tell me in the chat? Give me ideas of what we can do for appraisal. Why would we appraise? Different things. Why would we appraise? Let me know. To make sure to get the bank approval to know how much something is before. Oh, hold on. Let me chat. Brandon says for sales. Shanice, find value. So you know how much something is worth when you sell it. To get bank approval. To make sure the property matches the sales price. To get it, selling the property, correct lending. To get its full price. With appraisal, it's good to know the value of the product. So we can know for a seller or buyer. Okay. What else? I'm not talking just about real estate, right? We're not talking just for sales. So selling the property, correct lending. There's way more reasons for appraisals. Look right here. Appraisals could be made to figure out market value. Estimating reproduction or replacement value, which we're going to talk about later, it's a cost approach, right? Salvage value, it's destroyed value. So like what is it worth now once it's destroyed? We're going to talk about that later. Plottage value, what is the new value of the land once we put 2 parcels together? Assessed value, it's for tax purposes. Condemned value, when the city takes the property from you for public good, right? That's the eminent domain. Reversionary, if you guys remember from week 1, reversionary is today I'm selling you something as long as you do this, or as long as you do that, or as long as you're alive. Later on, it reverts back to me, right? So what is that future value going to be? Reversionary value. Appraised value for rental value. Leasehold, insured value is also different because you need to appraise for insurance purposes. What is book value and mortgage value? So for lending, right, as Ahmed wrote. Okay, so there's different types of valuations or appraisals made for different purposes. Okay, so market value is an estimate of the price at which a property will sell at a particular time. This type of value is the one generally sought in appraisals and used in brokers' estimates of value. Reproduction value, as we'll talk about later, is substituting the property based on the construction of a precise duplicate. So the building where I'm at costs, let's say, $500,000 to build. That's the reproduction value. But if I use today's materials, right? Think about if you go to the, let's say you buy a car, right? And you go to the factory and the factory says, oh, this part is $100. And you say, okay, I don't want to pay this $100 right now. Can the car still drive, right? The car can still drive, not a problem. You go home, you get on your computer, and you search that same part. and you find others for $20 or $30 instead of $100. You find for 20 or 30. Now these are not original manufactured equipped, right? So the OEMs, right? These are not the original. They're aftermarket. They're different brands, not the original equipped, right? So do they do the same thing? If the answer is yes, then it's a replacement of the original. If it's a replacement of the original, it has a lesser value than the original. So for insurance purposes, usually we use replacement value for insurance purposes. And that means I understand that 100 years ago, this property was built for $500,000 using this type of material. Nowadays, it would cost us $800,000 to rebuild an exact, precise duplicate. But if we use aftermarket or the replacement parts, right, the not original parts, instead of $800,000, it's going to cost us $600,000. This is what they insure you based on. Not the exact duplicate, not the exact material from 100 years ago, but today's material. Functional equivalent on the property. Okay? So, salvage value, just like a car, salvage title, total loss, right? It's when a particular property has reached its end of economic life. What is the end of economic life? Let's say the roof is a 30-year roof. At the end of 30 years, what are we supposed to do? Replace the roof. So the max that it will live is 30 years. After that maximum, the salvage value is whatever's left over. So let's say you still have like 5 years left on that roof, on the warranty of the roof. You know what? We divide those 30 years, divide by year, and you put those 5 years left. Boom, that's how much it's worth. Simple. Okay. Plottage value, I already told you. Plottage value is when you add more properties into one, and it becomes a larger value. It's one large parcel of land. Assessed value is what with the taxation. So assessed value is what the municipality attributes to your property, right? It's the value that the municipality attributes to your property. It's not the market value. It's assessed for tax purposes. Every time you see assessed, always remember taxes, okay? Assessed taxes, always. Condemned value or condemnation is for eminent domain, is when the municipality takes your property, so the county or the municipality takes your property for public good, for public purposes. Okay. Depreciated value. All right, Tina has a question. Go ahead. If anybody has a question, guys watching on, I see 3 people watching on YouTube. If you have a question, drop it down in the chat. Aha. All right. Hey, Stacy. How are you? You're alone or Ruth is watching with you? Let's see. Question from Tina. You know when you look up houses on Zillow and it shows tax assessment, why is it different than the list price? Okay. Because again, the assessed value is what the township determines the value of your property to be for tax purposes. Just like I said, insurance, they have the insured value versus the market value. Insured value is the cost of building a new structure. It's not the cost of selling it tomorrow. So assessed value is what your township determines your property to be worth, right? And it sucks because sometimes, like my very first house, I always talk about this. My very first house said, yeah, something like that, actually. I don't need to show you. So my very first house, I bought it for $330,000 or $340,000 several years ago, and the tax assessment was actually $120,000. Now, when I received that, I panicked. I went into panic mode, right? I got scammed. That's what it was. My very first house, I get scammed, right? So I went to City Hall to figure out what was going on, and the lady there explained to me, this amount is whatever the township believes your property to be worth based on their numbers. The lowest this amount is, the lesser you'll pay in taxes. And that's where I got comfortable. Actually, I would like this value to be 0, so then I don't have to pay any taxes at all. But this assessment is for tax purposes only. So you wrote 150, right? If the tax rate is 2%, as an example, then you're paying, then you're paying $3,000 worth of taxes per year, okay? If you're trying to get taxed based on the property value, the for sale value, if you're trying to get taxed based on 300, right? At 2%, you're looking at $6,000 a year. It's a big difference, isn't it? So the 150K is what the town believes your property to be worth. Let them believe that number. Let them keep that number. If we can dispute and bring it even lower, let's do it. All right? Has nothing to do with market value. Market value is what you can sell your property for. Assessed value is what you're getting taxed at. You're getting taxed 2%, 3%, 4% based on this value. Will it change the way you pay taxes? What do you mean? You pay taxes based on this value. When the property sells, it will only change the taxes if your town assesses at sale. The majority of the towns do not assess at sale. They assess based on a percentage of the average value in the area. So if a property is worth $300,000, let's say here in Newark, for instance, is 73%, then I pay taxes based on 73% of market value. In this case, this property is at 50% of market value, and you pay 2% taxes based on that assessed value. But we'll talk about it better. I think we still have another chapter for taxes. We'll talk about it better there. Not to get too off track here. But the lower the tax assessment, the better it is. Okay? Because your bill, you pay the same amount of taxes as everybody else. It's 2% across the board or 3% across the board in your municipality. So the taxes are the same. What makes you pay more or pay less is based on what your property is worth to them. So if you're 150 assessed value and your neighbor is 180, your neighbor should be paying more. If your other neighbor is at $50,000 assessed value, then they'll pay less. But that 2% or 3% or 20%, depending on the town that you're in, that 20% rate, tax rate, is applied across the board to all properties. Okay? We'll go over that better later. All right. Let's see here. Cheryl, how are they, the insurance companies, coming up with rebuilt values that are twice the value of the appraised or sales price of homes? Are they quoting brand new home prices with the square footage? Okay, so that's a very good question. The insurance companies should be insuring you based on the appraised values, right? So they'll give you the appraised value, and then they have an estimate. Let's say the replacement value, they'll know based on the area, the replacement value is roughly 80% of appraised value. So if the appraised value was 300, 80% would be 240, and that's what they're appraising on, what they're insuring on, right? If you are overpaying, there's two good things to being insured for more. There's two good things there. One is covering more house than it should be covering, right? And the bad thing is you're paying more premium. So if you want to pay less premium, figure out what the real value of a property is and dispute that with your insurance company. I've heard of insurance companies raising the value of the property at renewal. So if you feel that your property is not worth that much, then dispute it with the insurance company. They most likely will have it appraised, right? Or ask you to have a realtor, for instance, give CMAs, the comps, and you present that to your insurance company. Okay, Cheryl? But that's why a lot of people pay overpriced premiums. The insurance companies just attribute a value based on something that you might have said or something that was presented in the past, plus the estimated appreciation increase. All right, I'm getting a good evening from Michelle. Knits for you. Hi, Michelle. All right. All right, so next we have reversionary value. Like I said, reversionary value is, if you guys remember, the property is yours as long as you use it for this or that, or the property is yours as long as you're alive, whatever it is. In the future, that clause will take effect and revert back. The property reverts back to me. So what is that value? Okay. Appraised value, it's the appraiser's opinion value. Rental value, we're going to talk about that in the income approach at the end, is what a property is worth based on rental rates. And the same for leasehold value. Insured value, we just talked about it. Book value is, as it says here, is the value. So book value is the value of the property. Hold on. I have to retake my test. I failed by 7 points. All right, so I just got a statement here. I just want to make something clear to everyone right now. And Michelle, I appreciate it. It says I failed by 7 points. I keep on saying this to all my students. You only fail if you give up, right? So you did not fail, you just didn't pass this time. Simple. That's the attitude you got to take. You didn't pass this time, but you learned. You learned by taking the test and figuring out more or less what your weaknesses might be, right? Figuring out more or less what the exam might be like. So that's all learning. That's growing. If you would give up, then I would say I failed. That's failure. Giving up is failure. If you're back here, then you're a winner. All right, so I just want to point that out, guys. Giving up is failure. If you don't pass the exam the first try, second try, third try, but you keep on pushing, that is still winning to me. All right, so Michelle, if you fail by 7, okay, if you fail by 7 points, what I would do first of all, and I usually ask everybody to send me their score reports. Hey Ruth, how are you? I usually ask everybody to send me their score reports, because then I analyze more or less where your strongest points are and the weakest points. And I'll tell you, most of the times where people fail is agency, professional practices, and contracts. Those are like the basic where people usually fail. But I cannot give you a cookie cutter answer without looking at the score report. Does that make sense? So you guys will need to do either a self-assessment or send me your score reports, and I'll be able to kind of explain to you, hey, this is where you failed, do this or do that. Like, I'll give you a few pointers every time you fail. So Michelle, if there's anything you remember from the exam as we go over appraisals, for instance, if there's anything you remember, you're free to jump in and give me the questions that you remember, and I'll help you figure it out. Otherwise, what I recommend, guys, if you don't have my number, take it down now. Again, my number is 908-418-8325. On WhatsApp, send me, please. On WhatsApp, send me messages. Don't send me text messages. I get bombarded with text messages there. WhatsApp is the preferred method. And if I don't reply right away, send me another message, follow-up message always, right? And I'll address it. But if you have any questions, just reach out to me on WhatsApp. That's the preferred method. If you don't have WhatsApp and you have Facebook, look for, very simple right here, instructor Bruno. Look for instructor Bruno on Facebook. Add me and send me a message through Messenger. But add me as a friend. I will accept you and send me a message to instructor Bruno. Okay? If you text me or you call me, I'm just giving you a heads up. My phone's right here and it's constantly ringing. It's on silent, but it's constantly ringing. Messages are coming through. If I'm teaching for 4 hours and I have meetings before or meetings after, it's tough for me to get back to you. So I prefer WhatsApp or Messenger, because this way I can 2 o'clock in the morning, if I have to, I'll answer you, right? I might wake you up, but at least I answer, right? Ruth, can we YouTubers do it too? That's why I'm giving you the number. Anybody can reach me, okay? Just make sure you understand. If I don't answer right away, send me a bunch of messages. Keep on following up, and I will answer. I'm sorry, it's just that I'm very busy with the school and with the real estate and putting new trainings out there. So I might not answer right away. But I am here for you, for all of you, okay? All right, next. Oh, you're welcome, Cheryl. Very welcome. Mortgage value, obviously, it's what the mortgage company is willing to lend based on the mortgage value. Next, appraising market value. So most of the stuff we already covered in the previous chapter, but let's go over it again. Market value, as I said, is an opinion of price. Opinion. And as I showed you guys right in the beginning, opinion can change based on what we're looking at. Right? So you guys here see my phone from the front with the apps and all that good stuff. I was looking at my phone from the back. All I see is the camera, the support, and all that. That's all I see. So it's an opinion of value that can be disputed because personal opinions, right, are all different. Okay? The transaction, so the best property values, if the transaction is a cash transaction, will change. How long it was exposed on the open market. Very important. The buyer and seller have full information of the market conditions and about potential uses. So if I tell you all the issues that the property has, right? Oh, Brittany joined us. Welcome. You're breaking your promise. You said, no, you said Kieran. Sorry, guys. So YouTube, you guys don't know what I'm looking at, but Brittany just joined us. She was on the camera at 5. I'm going to put you on right now. I'll throw you under the bus. So she joined us at 5:30 when I turned on the class, and then disappeared because Kieran obviously distracted her. Even though Brittany promised to me that Kieran was fired from Zoom sessions. Just saying. All right? He's fired. Get him out. Simple. All right, guys. All right, so next. Again, if I don't understand the full market conditions, let's say I put an offer on the property, but I did not know that there was mold in the property, right? Because the seller covered it up. If I did not know there was mold, is that the right value? Is that the right value of the property? No, because I was not fully aware. So very important that both the seller and buyer are fully aware about market conditions, potential uses. There's no abnormal pressure on either party to complete the transaction. They are not related. That means family members, usually, what do we tend to do? We tend to, okay, fine. If it's for you, I'll drop $5, right? Simple. Or if it's for you, I'll raise $1,000. Whatever it is. But we tend to accommodate a little bit more. The title is marketable and conveyable by the seller. What does that mean to be marketable? Sellable, tradable. There's no issues with a title other than those that we accept, right? And the price is a normal consideration. What is normal consideration? It does not include hidden influences such as special financing deals, concessions, terms, services, fees, credits, costs are the type of consideration. So look, it's 300,000, 300,000 period. It's not, hey, it's 300,000, but let's put 280 and I'll do this for you. No, that's not the real value. Okay, that's the immediate trade is the real value. Joel's asking, does the seller have to disclose how much the value of the house is? No. But as a realtor, if I represent you, the buyer, Joel, if I represent you, as a realtor, I should be able to estimate what the value of that property is. So if the seller's selling for $300,000, but I feel it's worth $250, I'm going to tell you, Joel, hey, look, $250 is the best that I would go. If you want to try to beat the price or get close to the price and offer $300, sure. That's up to you, Joel. But I think that this property is worth $250. Or if it's sold for $300, but the property is worth $350, more, $50,000 more, I'm going to tell you, Joel, I think it's worth more. So $300 is what they're looking for. I bet that there's more people putting more offers. So maybe let's do a 305. Let's do a 310. Right? Let's make a solid offer. It's still going to be worth more anyway. You guys understand? So it's our job to represent the seller to the best of our ability and that get the highest possible sales price. But it's also our job to advise the buyer of what the potential value would be. Now, of course, guys, an appraiser will give you the official value for lending purposes, right? An appraiser will do that. So, another way of describing market value is that it's the highest price that a buyer would pay and the lowest price that the seller would accept for the property. So pretty much what we're saying is we came into an agreement, that's the market value. That's it, okay? Now, the market price as opposed to market value is what the property actually sells for, right? So this is now the final price. See, we can come into agreement now and then there's things we find out along the way because nothing is told to us 100%. So market value is what we expect to get for the property or pay for the property. Market price is what we actually paid for it. It's the final selling price, okay? Now, while the most appraisals seek to estimate market value, any of the types of value described earlier may be the objective of an appraisal. An appraisal is distinguished from other estimates of value in that it is an opinion of value supported by data. That's the difference. Supported by data. Performed by a professional, disinterested third party. So why is this important to know? Because guys, our comps, our comparables are supported by data. They're performed by a professional, right? Us. But the difference is this. Disinterested third party. If I represent the seller, my comparables are going to be the best for the seller, right? If I represent the buyer, my estimate of value are going to be the best for the buyer. So there's always that interest to one side or to the other. There's always a bias somewhere, right? Where an appraisal does not gain money from the sale or lose money from the sale. They get paid to do this estimate of value or opinion of value independently. You guys with me? Yes? Great. Now, appraisers acting in a professional capacity also regulated by state laws and bound to standards set by appraisal industry. Now we have here broker's opinion of value. This is also known as BOV, which is the same as BPO, which is a broker's price opinion. So depending on where you are in the world, they have different words, right, for it. Here in New Jersey, most of the times, in New York and Pennsylvania and so on, most of the times we call it a BPO, broker's price opinion. Okay? In some areas, it's the broker's opinion of value. So BOV or a BPO. Get familiar with it, because if BPOs show up, it's opinion of value. If opinion of values show up, it's the BPO, broker's price opinion. It means exactly the same. So the broker's opinion of value may resemble an appraisal, but it differs from an appraisal in that it's not necessarily performed by a disinterested third party, like I was saying right now. or a licensed professional, and generally uses only a limited form of one of the three appraisal approaches. In addition, the opinion is not subject to regulation, nor does it follow any particular professional standards. Okay? We already talked about the different uses of the appraisal, but now we're going to talk about the steps in the appraisal process. And the steps are very simple. Steps are very simple. First thing we got to do is identify the purpose. Why are we appraising? And if you guys remember, there's different types of appraisals. It could be for insurance. It could be for mortgage. It could be for rentals. It could be like there's different purposes. It could be a divorce. It could be an inheritance. So for probate, different purposes of value. We're going to assimilate relevant data. We're going to assess the highest and best use. We already talked about that. Estimate the value of the land by itself. Apply the three approaches to estimating value. And then once we apply the three approaches, what we're going to do, we're going to reconcile the values. We're going to put them back together. So independently approaches, right? So it's the income approach, the cost approach, and the value approach, the sales approach, right? We're going to go over that in a second. And then, or market data approach. And then we put them back together because one approach applies better to a particular property than to other. So we're going to figure out what's the best value based on all the three approaches. And we're going to compile a report, which is like a summary of the research that we did and the values we came up with and why. Okay? Okay. So purpose, just cover that. Data, covered. Highest and best use, covered. Land use. So we're going to move forward. Reconciliation and report. Sorry. All right. Now, the sales comparison approach, commonly known as comps or CMAs. Okay? So, sales comparison approach, it's the comps or comparables or the CMAs, comparable market analysis, right? Some people also call it the market data approach. Why is it called market data approach? Because again, we're going to look at market data. We're going to look at comparables. We're going to look at what the market sold for or did not sell for. So properties that are on the market stay there for too long, or properties that actually sold. So again, market analysis or market data approach. Okay, sales comparison is based on sales. Right here. It means the same. This is the most common one that we use. We even use it for the broker's opinion of value. All right, because most of the times when an appraiser comes to see the property, they might not be even from the area. So they don't understand fully what's happening to the market. They know how to look at a structure and determine its best value, right? But they might not understand what's happening in the markets. And that's where we jump in and say, no, 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 no. This property is not worth this much, or should be worth more based on these recent sales or lack of sales, right? Sometimes properties expire. They fail to sell if they're above a certain value. So is that the correct value? Probably not, right? If there's a lot of properties being sold above the value that the appraiser gave you, there's a lot of properties being sold recently, then you can dispute the value of the appraiser and say, I don't think it's 300, I think it's 310 based on these sales. So you can dispute. We use the BPO or the BOV to dispute these values. Okay. Now the sales comparison approach is based on comparing the sales price of recently sold properties that I just said And obviously, these recently sold properties must be comparable with the subject. Simple. If I'm trying to sell, right, and guys agree with me, right? If I'm trying to sell a property that's 3-bedroom, 1-bath, am I going to look for properties that are 6-bedroom, 2-bath? No, I'm going to look for properties that are as close to the property I'm trying to sell as possible. So if it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, single family, right? I'm going to look for other 3-bedroom, 1-bath single families in the area. And the closest they are to this property, the best the value will be. All right? So the steps in the comparison approach, again, sorry. All right, next. Steps in the sales comparison approach. We identify the comparable sales, so we are similar. We compare the comparables to the subject and make adjustments. What are these adjustments? Well, you think we're always going to find the 3-1? The 3-bedroom, 1-bath, we're always going to find it? No. Some comparables, they're very similar, but they are 3-2. Sometimes they're 3-1 with garage. And so on. So there's different things. Or this one could be, this is the subject property. This one has the vinyl siding while this one has stucco. All right, so there's clearly differences between these properties. If this is a single family, this could be a ranch, right? While this one is a colonial, and so on. 3.5, sure. Well, what we have to do, guys, is try to get to the closest possible. But if it's impossible in the area, if it's impossible to get to it, then we're going to adjust for these differences. We give a specific value, let's say $5,000 value to the garage. So if this one has a garage and this one doesn't, then this one's worth $5,000 less because that one has a garage. You guys get it? So we have to adjust to the comps. We're going to weigh the values of the indicated adjusted values, comparables, for the final value. Now, to qualify as a comparable, as I was saying, they must resemble in size, shape, design, utility, and location. They must have sold recently, generally within 6 months of the appraisal, and I'll talk about that better later on. And they must have sold in an arm's length transaction. What is arm's length transaction again? It's between relative strangers. That means acquaintances, or not even acquaintances, people you don't know. Arm's length transaction is when we keep somebody at a distance. Like, you stay right there. You do the best for yourself, I'll do the best for myself. Right? I want more value for my property. You're trying to bid me lower. No, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight you on it. Right? Because again, if it's family members, we try to accommodate. Okay, fine, I'll work with you. Family members or friends are people that we keep within arm's length, people we let in our circle. Does that make sense? So arm's length transaction is people that we keep at a distance. You fight for yourself, I fight for myself. Okay? As a seller, I want the highest price. As a buyer, you want the lowest price. Arm's length transaction. All right. Sorry. That's what it says right here. Arm's length. Disinterested parties fight for each other. Okay. And the appraiser adjusts the sales price of the comparables to account for competitive differences in the subject property. I already said that. You add and deduct value. So if the comparable is better than the subject the subject property in some characteristic, an amount is deducted from the sales price. This neutralizes the comparable's competitive advantage in an adjustment category. All right. So, for example, the comparable has a swimming pool. Like I gave the example of the garage. Here it says swimming pool, but the subject property, the one you're trying to appraise or the one you're trying to sell, does not have it. So to equalize the difference, the appraiser deducts an amount, so let's say $6,000, from the sales price of the comparable. Now note that the adjustment reflects the contribution of the swimming pool to the market value. The adjustment amount is not the cost of the pool or its depreciated value. Is what we in a market attribute to that particular item. Okay? If the comparable is inferior to the subject in some characteristic, an amount is added to the price of the comparable. So how do we adjust the criteria? How do we adjust these? Well, based on time of sale. That's one of them. Now, quick question. Time of sale. In today's market, things are flying really fast. Like there's no inventory, right? So can I compare a property that I'm trying to sell today to a property that sold a year ago? I can't, right? So the ideal market until recently has been 6 months. In certain areas like Newark, Harrison, Jersey City, and so on, in certain areas, 6 months is too much, right? So usually in hot areas, I like to talk about 90 to 180 days. So initially, all my searches start with 90 days. Initially. If I don't find any sales within the past 3 months, then I'm going to expand to 6 months. But initially, all my searches start 90 days because my market is Newark, therefore hot market. So I need to look at the past 3 months, what's sold in the area. All right. The next one is location. Can I compare, like I said, I'm in Newark. Can I compare a single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Newark, right, that I'm trying to sell today, to a property, a single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Woodbridge? Can I compare them? No, they're different locations. So we want to be, and this, by the way, this is not for, I'm going to address that right now. So this is not for exam purposes, the time frame or the distance that I'm going to give you right now. It's not for the exam, but in real life. You want to be within half mile to 1 mile radius. Okay? Half mile to 1 mile radius. So again, how do I start my searches? I'm going to start within 90 days, right? Half mile. If I don't find anything, I'm going to go to 180 days, half mile, still as close as possible, right? And why am I saying half mile? Why don't I just go to 1 mile? Very simple. Where I'm located right now, 1 mile south, I get to Elizabeth. So totally different market. But even half mile is difficult. We need to consider also neighborhoods. So within Newark itself, and almost every town has something like this, but within Newark itself, like I'm on Route 21 right here. On that side of Route 21 is the East Ward. Where I'm at is the Central, and then there's a South and the North Ward, for instance. Okay, so depending on the neighborhoods that you're at, there's different values. In South Newark, for instance, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath will be $400,000. Here, the Ironbound is going to be $600,000, as an example, right? I'm just throwing numbers out there, and it's not because of the type of people that live there. It's the desirability of the area. So Ironbound is right next to the train station, right? So it takes you straight to New York. It's where most of the commerce is. The Ironbound and the East Ward and the Central. It's where most of the commerce is, and that's where people want to be. So that increases value. There's other factors, but these are the main factors. It increases the value of the property. So we need to consider, Tina, based on your question, we need to consider again neighborhood. So half mile, but did I cross already to a different neighborhood? All right. I had a student in my previous evening session that said, well, Bruno, if I cross the street, I'm already in a different town. Well, yeah, then when you do your search, okay, when you do your search and your property is right here, if this is a different town, right, call it town for now. If it's a different town, then you're going to look at all the properties that are within your area. Even though your search could be half mile, this is the subject property. See, half mile goes into the other town. Then which properties I'm going to use for comparables? Property 1, 2, 3, 4. Any property that it's in this area is not being considered for our comps. You guys understand? Right? So we got to look at neighborhoods. Within half mile, this is what I found. This is my property. Across the street is a different town, so I cannot use them. Then I'm going to be within half mile this way, and these are within the same town, within the same neighborhood. They give values. Okay? But that's not the same location or town. Well, that's what I was saying. This right here, Joel, this first circle, I cannot do different colors here, unfortunately. But this first circle is Newark. This first circle is Newark. This second circle is the half mile radius that I put around in my search. And because it goes into a different town, we don't consider any of those properties here. We will not consider them. Only the ones that are in Newark and closest to the subject property, within the half mile of the subject property. You got it? So we stay in the same town, hopefully in the same neighborhood. Because again, once you reach this neighborhood, it's a different value as well. So we want to be within the same area right here. This is where we want to be. Anything outside this area is not considered anymore. Okay? So again, here, this first circle is Newark. The property was right here. Half mile radius gets it to a different town, so we don't want it. The only ones that count are the ones in this red area, which is still considering the half mile right here. Okay. Right there. These are the boundaries of our search. No more than that. You guys got it? Give me a thumbs up if you got it. Great. All right. And I got 5 people at home putting the thumbs up as well. I can't see you, but I know you're doing that. This one's obvious. I think to me the most important are these two, and then this one's obvious. Physical characteristics. Again, like I said, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. You're going to look for 3-bedroom, 1 bath as much as you can. If there's not enough, you go 3-bedroom, 2 bath, and so on. This is common sense. And transaction characteristics. Was it cash? Was it financed? Was it owner financed? Did you assume a mortgage that was existing? Like, depending on what the sale was, how the sale was conducted, it gives different values as well. Okay. As far as weighing the comparables, different adjustments, I'll show you that later in an actual comp. And we have the brokers, CMA, also called comps. Broker CMA, also called comps. All right. All right, so comps. Now, a broker or salespeople, right, who is attempting to establish a listing price or range of prices for a property uses a scaled down version of the appraisal sales comparison approach. Scale down because it's a simpler approach. We call it comparative market analysis, or CMA, also called competitive market analysis. While the CMA serves a useful purpose in setting general price ranges, brokers and agents need to exercise caution in presenting CMA as an appraisal because it's not. In fact, all your appraisals have to include a statement. All your comps have to include a statement that says this is not an appraisal. Okay? Because it's not. Two important distinctions between the two are the objectivity and the comprehensiveness. First of all, as I said earlier, the broker is not unbiased. Usually we're motivated by the desire to obtain the listing if we're trying to sell, which can lead to distort the actual value. So sometimes we agree with the seller. Yes, your property is worth $1 million, let's list now, right? But the property is really worth $300,000, right? So it could happen that we make that mistake. Second, it's not comprehensive. See, the broker does not usually consider the full range of data about market conditions and comparable sales that the appraiser must consider and document. Therefore, the BPO or BOV, broker's opinion, will be less reliable than the appraisers. So here's an illustration of the comparison sales. We looked at the subject property. You guys, let me zoom in. Okay. Subject property, so 8 rooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, kitchen, living room, and so on, right? So not too much details here, like not too many details, I'm sorry, here, right? And then we're going to look at comps. This one sold for $1 million in the previous month, right? It was a conventional financing at current rates, located in the subject's neighborhood, and so on. So different properties. This is as much as we're looking at in our appraisal. In our comps. Keep on saying appraisal today. This is as much as we're looking for. So what we're going to do is put it on paper. In our comps, in our evaluation or estimate of value, this is how we break it down. This is the subject property that we're trying to sell today, right now, trying to sell. And then property A, as we saw up there, property A sold for $1 million, property B sold for 1.2, property C for 1.15, and property D for 1.09 million, right? Now, financing terms, standard, so conventional, let's say. The sale date, we're trying to sell now, but all these others were equal, right? That means within that range that's acceptable, let's say the 6 months. That's equal. It's not something that sold too long ago. It sold within the acceptable range, so equal. Location, equal value because they're close to the subject property. But look, you see this one right here? This one, minus $20,000. See, we didn't have enough comparables, so we had to expand our search from half mile to 1 mile, let's say. And when we expanded our search, we found this property that was equal in everything else. You guys see there? Equal in everything else. So we used it as comparable so we could have at least 4 comps to make a reasonable decision. Minus $20,000. Age, the same thing. One is older than the other. Lot size, one is bigger than the other. The site or the views, different. Design, appeal, construction, conditions, so on. The rooms, the amount of rooms, all that good stuff. If you guys notice, everything has a different value. And at the end, net adjustments. Plus 45, minus 144, plus $35,000. The one that's most comparable to our property is this one. 0 adjustments to it, okay? So everything is very similar. So it is safe to say on the average of these 4, it is safe to say that our property is worth 1.12. All right? Now, guys, I'm not teaching you exactly how to do this today. Not teaching you that. That's something you guys are going to learn once you're out on the field. We need to understand the basics so at least you pass the state exam. But there's no question there in the state exam, what is the value of a garage or of a property that has a garage and one that doesn't? It will actually tell you, for instance, they'll give you the value like this. This one has more rooms. So if a room is worth $5,000 and the comparable property has more rooms, then how much is your property worth? You understand? So they'll give you the values. We don't have to figure it out. I'm just making it clear. You don't have to figure out what's the value of a room What's the value of bath, right? What's the value of the gross living area? You don't have to figure that out for the exam. It will be given to you, okay? Again, here explains these differences, right? Very simple. We add or subtract from it. Any questions so far? You just need to remember that we make adjustments. And for state exam, again, they don't ask you how to calculate those adjustments. Tina, I just gave you the answer. I just literally told you. These are random numbers that are put here. In the state exam, they'll tell you what's the worth. And if you guys, the reason why they put it here this way. Okay, hold on. Let me show you something real quick. So this was property A. Okay, so we had 3-bedroom, 2-bath in our subject property. Let's look at property A real quick. Okay, in property A has less bedrooms and less bath. There's only 2, 1. And they determine in that area what is worth or not. See, if we're going in ratios, if that's what you want to call, if we're going in ratios, then having an extra bathroom where there's 3 bedrooms, having an extra bathroom, yeah, it could be worth more than having an extra bedroom. Because you have 3-bedroom, 1 bath, changes completely the value of a property. We have 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Yeah, it could be worth more than the extra bedroom. It could. It all depends. Type of property, type of area, what's the demand, right? All that good stuff that we cannot consider right now. That's why I said they'll give you these numbers. For state exam, they'll give you those numbers. You guys good? Great. All right, cool. So we're going to go briefly over the cost approach because my main focus is going to be after the break. It's going to be the income approach, and we're going to go slow on that one. That you need to know how to make the calculations. Right? But the cost approach is the cost of replacement. Okay? So it's the cost of new construction. Okay, and I'm gonna write right above it. Okay, so substitution for a new construction, whether using the replacement or the reproduction cost. So there's not properties to compare to. There's no comparable sales. So we have to become a little bit more creative. If there's no comparables, we cannot find anything. Then let's figure out how much does it cost to build another one, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say the phone, right? How much does it cost to build this phone? If we build with manufacturer, right? Everything from factory, according to manufacturers, OEM, if we build everything manufactured, let's say $600. It's how much it costs to build the phone. But if I can find replacement parts, instead of $600, I might build it for $500 or even less. So there's 2 approaches of I broke this and I need to repair it. There's 2 approaches to that. Should I go with original or should I go with aftermarket? Obviously, everything has their own conditions. I'll give you the example. I have 2 phones that unfortunately the screen is cracked. I have both phones. One of them, this newer technology, newer everything, like this one. One of them, everything is built into the glass. So if you guys never opened up a phone or got angry enough that you smashed the phone, that was probably just me. But let's say you dropped your phone. It happens sometimes. You drop your phone and everything opens up and you look at it. Oh, that's all that's there? Yeah. When you open it up, once you take the screen, most phones until recently, most phones, you take the screen and it's independent. And you see all the components of your phone. Samsung and a few other companies came up with these new phones where everything is attached to the screen. So if you damage the screen, You need to replace the screen and those attachments, right? So it's a little different. What are the advantages and disadvantages? So for warranty purposes, they want you to use their own material. And everything will be sealed. Everything will be proper, so you can have that waterproof function again, right? If you use aftermarket parts, I checked the difference. For instance, for me to use the Samsung one, is $280 to replace. But for me to use aftermarket is like $170 or whatever. It's almost $100 difference, right? But again, the warranty, the whole waterproof function is going to be gone. So it starts making a difference of using precise, original, or aftermarket. And that's what the cost approach will be. How can we give value? How do you guys think they give value when they say, even for a car, when they say, hey, just bring trade the car in for a new phone, for a new car, or bring the phone in, trade it for a new phone. How do they give value? Like a phone that I bought for $1,200, if I go trade it in right now, it's $300. Why? Because the cost to replace the whole phone, the cost to fix the whole phone is around those $300. They'll use it for parts. You guys understand? So they'll sell it for higher, obviously, but they use it for parts. It's based on replacing it, fixing it. How much is it going to cost? So looking right here, types of cost appraised, depreciation, so on. What would we use the cost approach for? We can use it for recently built properties or special purpose buildings. Very important. Recently built properties or special purpose buildings. Why? Because if it's a brand new home, guys, how can we compare? Right? If it's the new kid on the block, how can you give value? Right? If there's older homes, right, then we have, as I was showing you guys before, let's say within half-mile radius, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are all older homes, and then all of a sudden, there's a new home right there. How do we give value to the new home? What can we compare to? It's tough, right? Now these 6 homes, they've been on the market for at least 10 years, as an example. If they've been on the market for at least 10 years, there's more sales or resales than new sales, right? There's more resales than new sales, so there's more comparables. If you're looking at an area that has all these are brand new homes in this area, in this neighborhood, let's say, these are all brand new homes, then it's a lot easier because once this sold, the first one, second one, third one, then we know the value of the other ones. You guys understand? Because they're all newer and there's existing sales. Very, very important that you guys understand. Recently built properties are difficult to assess with comparables. Difficult to assess with comparables because there's not many to compare to. Dina, what about a flipped house? Well, when you have a flipped house, right? It's difficult because it's unique. It depends because most flipped houses are renovations. Yeah, no, I'm stupid like that. I'm sorry. When you have flipped houses, usually it's renovation. It's not a brand new construction. So if it's a reno, yeah, it's going to be worth probably a little bit more. But we're looking at what's called the after repair value. And the after repair value for flips is based on all these others that were here. Usually. Sorry. We're going to use these properties that were not new. We're going to use these for comps for after repair value. Once it's built, let's say 3 months down the line, then we're going to look at the most recent comps of recent sales in the area. Maybe this one's worth a little bit more. But in the beginning, the projection is based on these. Once it's completed, the projection is going to be based on what's in the area. Is it better than this one or is it worse than that one? That's different. And new constructions is Usually don't fall into these. Sorry, it's just when everybody says flipping a house, that's like flipping pancakes or burgers. Okay? Bought a house, you rehabbed, and you sold it. It's the after repair value. So we were talking about new buildings, and now we're talking about special purpose buildings. What are special purpose buildings? Schools, churches, hospitals, right? How many do you see for sale? And if you do see them, how many can you compare to, right? See, these type of buildings right here, the special purpose buildings, usually they don't have. I'll do this. Usually they don't have enough comparable or enough income to give value, because that's the third approach, is the income approach. So usually they don't have enough comparables or enough income to give value. So that's why recently built homes don't have comparables, and special purpose buildings don't have comps or generate income. So we need to look at the cost to replace. Okay. So the strengths of the cost approach are that it provides an upper limit of the subject's value based on the undepreciated cost of reproducing the improvements. It's very accurate for property with new improvements, which are the highest and best use of the property. It's the highest and best use of the property. The limitations of the cost approach is that the cost of improvements is not necessarily the same as market value. Right? Because the cost to improve, let's look at the flipped homes, right? Maybe I'm buying the property for $100,000 and it costs me another $100,000 to repair. So that's $200, right? What is the property value? You're telling me the property value is only $100? It's not. Are you telling me it's $200 because I bought it for $100 and now I put $100 into it? It's not. Maybe the property is worth $250 or $300. So the value is different than what we put in. So the cost to create improvements is not necessarily the same as market value. If it's a brand new construction, might be close to it. Okay? And depreciation is difficult to measure, especially for older buildings. Now, the types of cost appraised, we have the reproduction and the replacement cost. And if you guys remember, reproduction is when we have an exact duplicate. So reproduction, I'm going to show you right here, it's a precise or exact duplicate. Precise or exact duplicate. That means we're using the same parts that were used in the beginning. Let's assume, for instance, that the building has copper pipes. We don't use copper pipes anymore, but when it was built, they had copper pipes. So our calculations for reproduction have to include copper pipes. Today we use PVC, plastic, right? So we use PVC, and PVC is a functional equivalent of the original. So this is called a replacement cost. It's when I told you guys about that aftermarket, right? It's not the original manufactured, it's aftermarket. So the values are different. PVC costs less or even those flex pipes, the color-coded ones, they cost less to install material and to the labor than the copper. Because copper is expensive, plus you have to solder, you have to be specialized, and this and that, right? Now, a little bit of glue, put it all together, or those couplings for the color-coded ones, right? It's like, no offense if you're a plumber, but it's like plumbing for dummies, right? They made it color-coded. All you got to do is plug in, right? Or put a little bit of glue. Boom. Done. Back then, It was the copper pipe, so more expensive. These are things to consider when you're replace. See right here, replacement cost is used primarily for appraising older structures, since it's impractical to consider reproducing outmoded fixtures, features, and material. Okay, it's almost impossible to use the same thing that was used back in the day. All right, you guys on YouTube, if you have any questions, you can always chime in as well. Okay. Another thing that reproduction can bring us is depreciation. Okay, so the cornerstone of the cost approach is the concept of depreciation. Now, what is depreciation? Depreciation is the loss of value of an improvement over time. So let's think about this. There's a wall over here, right? So this wall has 2x4s. It has wood, right? And it has the sheetrock. Now, over time, things shift. That's one of the things. Over time, there's more holes being put here, right? Because we're always hanging stuff, taking stuff out, and so on. Over time, the overall structure gets old. And if it gets old, eventually needs to what? Be replaced. So we know that the material loses value. The roof loses value. The plumbing loses value. There's nothing in your house that will last forever. That's what we have to think. So we're going to talk about this better in when we talk about investments, because it comes with taxes. But for tax purposes, they estimated the value of the house to be 27.5 years. That means over 27.5 years, almost everything in the house is going to be replaced one way or another. Okay? So that's or at least 80% of the house needs to be replaced. Something needs to be improved. The fact that people don't, that's a different story. Like your car. They tell you at 25,000 miles, you should replace this. At 50,000 miles, you should replace that. Same concept. You want your car to last forever? Replace these things along the way when it's due. And the house is the same, right? So depreciation is understanding that over time, things will lose value because they need to be replaced, maintained, or something like that, right? Now, since land is assumed to retain the value indefinitely, depreciation only applies to improvements. What are improvements? Anything that's added to the raw land. If you guys remember, you have the definition of land, definition of real estate. Land is the way nature intended. Nature said, hey, here's dirt, here's a tree, here's a rock. That's land, right? Real estate is, here's the dirt, here's a tree, here's a rock, and now there's a house, there's a driveway, there's a garage, there's a pool, there's the plumbing. All that is called improvements to the land. And all of those, over time, must be replaced. Okay, the rock does not lose value. The rock is a rock. The dirt does not get destroyed. It could be removed, but does not get destroyed. So it doesn't lose value. Okay? But the house does, the pool does, and everything else that's man-made or human-made loses value over time. Now, an appraiser considers depreciation having three causes. There's three ways to lose value. It could be physical, right here, physical. It could be functional, or it could be economic obsolescence. Okay? So physical deterioration, physical is wear and tear, it's usage. Structural deterioration over time. So in the school or state exam, if you look at it and they say which one of these is considered to be a physical deterioration, look for something that is damaged. Physical is damaged. Okay? Or if the question talks about something that's damaged, what does this represent? So damage or wear and tear is physical deterioration. It's simple association. You don't have to read much more into it. Physical deterioration, wear and tear, so damage. Okay? It could be curable or incurable, meaning it's fixable, like painting is something you can do easily, or it might be incurable where it costs so much that it's not worth fixing, you just replace it. Okay? Then there's functional obsolescence. Functional means the features are no longer desirable. Functional, it's features. So for instance, if I have, I'll give you the example. I have somebody that I just helped buy a 4-family. They're about to close. I have a 4-family, okay? In this 4-family, 2 of the units have 3 bedrooms, right? 2 bath, 1 living room. Okay? So 2 of the units, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1 living room. But then there's 2 units that have 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 1 living room, and 1 dining room. Okay? So this is equal to that one. Okay? Did you guys notice the difference? These 2 units have 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1 living room, no dining room. These 2, they have 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 1 living room, 1 dining room. So when we're talking about functional obsolescence, most families nowadays, I don't know how your families are, but most families nowadays, they don't sit in the dining room anymore to eat. It's like the kitchen, right? It's the kitchen, or we're watching TV and kids are in their room, or whatever it is. It's one or the other. There's no sit at the dining room to eat unless there's a party, like unless there's a social event, a family event, whatever, right? So if that's the case for this particular property, this is how I helped the buyer of this property increase the cash flow really simply. Very, very simple. How do we increase the cash flow? Do we really need the dining room? No. Let's turn the dining room into a 3rd bedroom. So now 2 of the properties here were bringing $1,500 and these were bringing $1,200. Guess what? By making that small change of the functionality, we now get $6,000 in this house. You see the difference? Right? It's only $600 difference, but I'm not sure about you guys, but $600 helps me pay for the car, for instance. Makes a huge difference at the end of the day, right? And these 2 right here already paid for the mortgage. She's not going to live here for free. That's why I didn't put anything there. She's going to live here for free, and this one's the profit. So she gets a full $1,500 check every month as profit in the purchase. You guys understand? If she moves out of this house in a year from now, right? Now she has a full profit of $3,000, right? Instead of $2,400, and so on. But anyway, the point is, functional is, can we redesign the room because it's no longer functional the way it is or desirable the way it is. So functional is features of the house, things we need or things we don't need anymore in the house. It has nothing to do with wear and tear or damage. That's physical. Functional, can we rearrange things? Okay? Is it possible? It could be curable or incurable, okay, as well. And then there's this 3rd one. Economic or external obsolescence. And this one's very simple. If you guys think about economic, we are not talking about your own economic values, like your salary, your wages, or whatever. If it's economic, usually we're talking about things that are not on your property, like the market going up, the market coming down, right? Or, I'm sure you guys hear it all the time. I'm right by Route 21, and it's like the main artery for all the ambulances and all the cops to go through. Right? You guys hear it all the time. There's always something coming through. Surprisingly today, right? Knock on wood. Today, we haven't heard one. But you guys can hear the train. The train is right over here. Let me ask you two things. One is about, right, Janice? One is about the train. Can I move the railroad right next door? Can I move it? No, I cannot move the railroad. Can I move my building? Probably not. Very difficult, unless it's a mobile home. And even those could be difficult, depending, right? Ruth says it's quiet today. Yep, today is very quiet, thank God. So what we're trying to say here is that if it's economic obsolescence, it's something in the economy or something away from your property that it affects your property. So external or things surrounding the property. It's always external or economic, things surrounding the property. And because they're not on your property, they are considered always incurable. I cannot fix it because the railroad is right there. I cannot fix it because Route 21 is right here. I have to deal with all these sounds, and I have to adjust on my end to block those sounds, as an example, right? You guys understood? Thumbs up? All right. So physical, wear and tear. Functional, it's the features of the house that could be rearranged or not to increase value or not, right? Number 3, economic or external obsolescence. It's something that's outside of your property, all right? When you see the word, by the way, when you see this word obsolescence, think of obstacle. Think of something that affects your property. Obsolescence, obstacle. It affects your property. Okay? Some you can overcome, right? Like the functional ones or the physical ones you can overcome, right? But some you cannot, all right? So obstacles that you cannot overcome, or obstacles that you can overcome. We're almost done, and then we go to a quick break. These are the steps to the approach, and something you need to remember for the cost approach. This is only for the cost approach, guys. Step number 1. Okay? We estimate the land value separately. Why separately? Because then we're going to calculate the reproduction or replacement of the building. We cannot replace the land. The land is the land. But the building could be replaced. So one is calculated separately from the others. If they ask you, in which one of the approaches is land calculated separately? It's the cost approach. Okay? In which one of the approaches is the land calculated separately? It's the cost approach. Because what we're talking about cost approach is the cost of replacing or reproduction of the building, not the land. You cannot replace land. Land is land. Okay? But the building could be replaced. Remember that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to estimate the accrued depreciation. So the loss of value over time of these walls. We're going to subtract the depreciation from the reproduction or replacement. And we're going to show this in numbers in a second. And then at the end, we're going to add the land to the depreciated reproduction or replacement cost. Okay? So again, we estimate the land value separately as if it was vacant or unimproved. Now, how do we figure out the reproduction or replacement cost? There's different ways to do so. There's 4 different ways. The most common one is this one, the unit comparison method. We're going to look at other buildings that were built recently and how much did they cost per square foot. And if we're doing a replica of the building, then we just estimate the cost of square foot times the amount of square feet we have. So this is the most common method. When somebody gives you an estimate nowadays, they tell you, well, got roughly 1,000 square feet, so it's going to cost about $200 a square foot. So we're looking at $200,000 for this construction. Simple. You guys understand? But the other one is the unit in place method. So when we don't have something to compare to, like no new recent constructions, we're going to have to figure out labor in every single component. How many sheetrock do we need? How many 2x4s do we need? How many pipes, elbows, and all that stuff do we need? How many light fixtures do we need? Those are going to be added with the labor, and it gives the value. You guys understand? So these are the 2 most common ones, is the unit in place and the unit comparison, or square foot, most commonly known as square foot method. These are the most common methods to figure out square footage. To figure out reproduction or replacement cost. All right. There's also the quantity survey method and the cost indexing method. Not heavily tested. This one is saying that the cost that was 10 years ago, think about inflation, right, or the current index, and we adjust based on that. It went up by 10%. So it cost 300,000. Now we go up by 10%. It's 330,000. That's how much it's going to cost. So it's the cost of the index or inflation. Okay. And now I'm going to show you quick numbers, and then we take a break. So the cost approach. If you guys look right here, land value, separate from everything else. The land value, the raw land value is $80,000. Raw land by itself, $80,000. Then we're going to talk about the improvements. The main building, by one or more of the 4 methods, so square foot, unit in place, quantity survey, or the index method we just went over, right? The main building would cost $260,000 to replace. Other structures that might be there, for instance, $16,000. So what is the total cost new? Brand new building, $276,000. That's what it is. All right. Now we're going to look at the loss in value over time. Physical depreciation, curable, $10,000. Incurable, like there's nothing we can do about it, estimate $14,000. Like not being able to put there to fix the roof right now, let's say, whatever it might be. Okay. Functional obsolescence, we cannot put an air condition. It loses $6,000 in value, as an example. And then external obsolescence. So the total depreciation, or the total loss in value, as we said earlier, is $30,000. Okay? So how do we figure out the value of this property? Well, let's look first. $276,000 was the cost new, right there, right? Minus the depreciation, then the cost of the improvements, the cost of replacement is really $246,000. The next thing we do is we add the land to the replacement cost. We add the land to the replacement cost. So right here, we're going to add $80,000 land, no depreciation to it, right, to the replacement cost. So this property is worth $326,000. Again, for state exam, most likely you will not have a question in math. You'll not have a question of how to calculate this. If you do, it's this simple. It's this simple. It's land by itself, and they'll give you the number. They'll give you all these numbers or similar numbers. Land by itself, $80,000. set it aside. You got to calculate these. Improvements and depreciation. That's what you need to calculate. And again, they'll give you these numbers. They'll give you the 276, if anything, and they'll give you the $30,000 depreciation. So really, the only thing you guys need to do, if the question is there, is step number 4 and step number 5. If the question is there, step number 4 and 5, which is, they'll give you the replacement cost, they'll give you the depreciation for you to figure out what the value really is of that replacement, 246, and they'll give you the land value. So once you figure this one out, just add the land, and boom, that's the value, 326. Right? So again, don't worry so much about it. It's not heavily tested. This one will be. I can almost guarantee a question on the income capitalization approach, okay? But cost replacement, it's that simple. They'll give you the values. The land costs X value, and then replacement is Y, and depreciation is Z. What is the value of this property? Simple. Y minus Z plus X, boom, that's the value. I know, I just made it way simpler. All right, guys, any questions before we go into a quick break so you guys can decompress a little bit? I see some brains are pushing and saying, please give me a break right now. Right? It is now 7:56. It's now 7:56, 57. Any questions? All right, guys. If there's no questions, then I'm going to give you a break until 8:10. So you got 13-minute break. All right, it should be enough for you to recharge and come back to this one, which I need your full attention to. Okay. So YouTubers, I'm going to end this session. I'm going to open one right after. So just look out. Make sure you guys subscribe so you get the alerts. And we'll be right back, guys. See you in a bit.